staking them out and scoping the place out.
Yeah,
it could have
maybe.
also been somebody who just decided that was where they like to park their car.
Well.
But it is weird. On the 27th of December, someone was reported to have been seen wandering around this home and the other homes near it. I will say, that guy was described as being in his 40s. And by the way, the ages on people who are described in the theory section, both this one, all of our theories, they bounce between 20 and 40, just so you're warned and don't get thrown off by that.
Okay.
But this particular person was described as walking around the house, being a 40-year-old man.
So wandering around the outside of the house.
Right.
Not the inside.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. And I will tell you that I find this rather innocent because of the fact that A, it's a public park space at this point, and B, it is entirely possible that it's somebody who's involved with the conversion process from residential homes to park space, assessing the space and going, oh, well, what's going here? What's that? I mean, it could be people just looking at it. So a guy wandering around just isn't that out of the ordinary.
Really,
or
no.
somebody lost.
Yeah, very true. The other
Or that's
thing,
the closest road.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Except it's not.
Of course, when you actually think about it, this is evidence in any one of the theories or some of the theories.
It kind of
Yeah.
is, but I'm throwing it all on the random killer because, well, it's just random information. So that worked.
Okay.
Weird. The day before the killings, a man is said to have been seen wearing the same outfit as the one that was seen in the home. This guy is supposedly spotted at Seijo-Kagu Inmai Station, which is about a mile or so away from the home. I believe that's the southern station. There's more than one train station about a mile or so away from the house.
We're talking about train stations.
Yes, so that is the train station.
Okay.
There's one south and one north, but reportedly people noticed this guy and remembered his outfit because it wasn't appropriate for the weather and the bag was so unique. So that's why people figured it out.
Or people were just misremembering.
Possibly.
Or that was like a popular fashion at the time.
There's always that.
Sort of, kind of, for a certain ilk, which we will discuss soon.
Yeah, we will.
By the way, also on this particular day, someone had purchased a sashimi knife in the area around the station. They did find record of a sale of a sashimi knife. So,
But also, we don't know it wasn't the family.
That's true. Are they popular knives in Japan?
Sashimi knife?
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah.
So
They are.
not too surprising then. Okay.
No.
Yeah, okay.
let's see, what else is there? There's also reporting that presumably someone walking in the park, by the way, this is at night, on the night of the murders, saw another person heading quickly down the path in the direction of the family's house. I'll be honest, I think that's a bit of a red herring. I think that's an easy, I stitched this on because the Miyazawas were killed, and that's just kind of probably a junk statement.
Yeah, similarly, like I see people walking around Joe's house all the time.
You do?
And
And I never see them again, but I don't say that that's because Joe killed them.
no.
Did you?
I don't remember. I had
Okay.
these blackouts. I don't know.
The cats did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Goofy.
that's the random killer theory, which
I don't like
it's
it.
a bad.
No, but like, frankly, none of these theories.
I was about to say, you know what? All of these theories have giant gaping holes in them.
Yeah. The
But-
random killer one kind of does fit the least, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a big enough hole. Somebody could skate right through it.
There are.
Let's talk
There
about
are-
some skater
Skating!
punk.
Yeah, I think it can be said there are things about this murder that suggest that whoever it was that did it, whatever their motive, they had a motive. It wasn't just randomness.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Could,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about theory number 2, which is the skater punk theory. So if you remember, we talked about the fact that the house is located in a park, and when you do the reading, you will see people talk about the fact, or you will see it in the reporting that there is a skate park right adjacent to the home.
Which
Well,
is somehow
across
even.
the street, though, right?
Well, that's the thing, is that people always say, it was right behind or right next to the house, which
Yeah,
is
no.
not actually true, because there's the driveway that intersects the main road, which is about 100 feet, or 120 feet, maybe 100 meters away from the house. And then the skate park is on the other side of the street. And by the way, this is the tamest looking skate park
It's
I
so
have
bad.
ever seen.
It's not
Yeah.
much of a skate park.
There's-
Definitely not featured in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
No.
No, because there's a couple of concrete berms that go up, two of them, one up and down, up and down. Then there's a small half pipe and an even smaller quarter pipe, and then a big plaza space. It's very plain. It's very benign. There's nothing that says to me, skate or die. Like nothing like that in that space.
Yeah.
Okay, but people make a lot out of it because of the fact that a few days before the killing, Mikio was seen, he's apparently, according to different theories, he was seen arguing with different people, but Mikio was seen arguing with a skater.
Surprise! Nobody ever fights with skater teenagers, ever.
No.
They are the most agreeable bunch of all.
I kind of get the feeling that these Japanese skaters probably are a very tame and nice bunch. It doesn't seem like they're actual skater punks, but according to theory, that's not true.
But even skater punks, like, they're not going to go break into somebody's house and murder a bunch of people.
No, that's kind of unlikely.
Yeah.
They will key your car.
Yeah. They might, 360 Henley grind onto your
Front lawn.
front lawn.
Yeah.
I know that.
You were trying. You were really trying.
I know
there,
the
Devin. Well
skater,
done.
Skater words.
No, but the fact that people saw or say they saw Mikio arguing with a skater, combined with the clothing that was found in the house discarded,
Yeah.
which people say is skater garb or something that at the time was in fashion with skaters, would lead them to say, well, it had to be it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the clothing that was found and why this kind of
the textiles.
Yes, the
Let's
textiles. Okay, so there was that down style jacket, which was an AirTech brand jacket, and it apparently had both sweat and blood in it. The blood type was A, but that didn't the DNA from that didn't link to anybody.
Didn't link to the killer's blood left behind in the house even?
I actually haven't seen that the two were connected. It may have been, and it's just not reported that way. Again, this is one of those issues with translation, so I don't know
Yeah,
for
it's hard to
sure.
tell.
It might have meant, nobody connected who was a victim, or
Or
it could have
her.
In the
Yeah.
system.
could have just meant that our perp bought it in a secondhand store and already had a little blood on it.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
There was a hat left behind, which was a Crusher hat, which is, I always describe this as, you remember Gilligan's Island, and Gilligan had that silly sailor hat with the edges that fold up, folded down. Well, it was that made out of fuzzy material. You see rappers wearing them. Was it? Well, no. There was. Was it? I remember LL Cool J back in the day rocking one of these.
No, you don't.
You're right. I don't. I don't know who LL Cool J is. I saw his name on the internet and I used it.
Yeah,
yes, I do.
I mean, LL Cool J, I thought LL Cool J was a cigarette. You mean it's a person?
But okay, the other things that were found is there was a shirt, and it was t-shirt cotton fabric, but it was white across the chest, and then the arms, the long sleeve arms, were made out of that was purple. Only 130 of those shirts were apparently sold by a local shop in Marufuru, which is very close by.
Yep.
So seems like there's not a whole lot of them sold. And then the shoes that were sold, which I gave you the brand earlier and I've lost it. Slazenger, I believe it was.
Yeah, sounds right.
But they were apparently favored by skaters. Again, the sizing was in Korean and it was a size 28.
Oh my God.
No, it doesn't work like that, dude.
I know, Korean.
There are quite a few weird things in the clothing, though, that are also found. I said that there was a black handkerchief that was found. That had cologne on it, which was Dakar. Help me here, Devin. Dakar Noir? Is that right?
Noir.
Noir, thank you. I've been saying all kinds of words right, so the simplest ones I have to flunk.
It's like
You
Pinot
didn't-
Noir.
Okay.
Yeah, at least you didn't say
Pinot
Neuer.
Neuer.
Noir.
Drakkar Neuer by Guy LaRoche. And so, okay, this is the other weird thing about
Weird.
that.
This is weird.
About the handkerchief is that it had recently been ironed.
Yeah.
Which leads people to think that this was a skater who still lives at home and his mom irons everything for him.
I don't know. I feel like there's like a very...
I think it's dumb.
Japan is this really amazing place for street fashion. Like crazy amazing. And I would say that there is a real pride within certain groups of people in your appearance
Yep.
to a Hollywood level. Like there are definitely certain subcultures in the fashion of street fashion. Fashion of street fashion? Yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. That like the dudes, like I think we're gonna talk about like the dudes who dress like Elvis. Like and their pompadours are
greasers?
so giant, and they like there's a very meticulous. Oh my god, there are some amazing documentaries on Netflix and YouTube about
So-
the women who take part in this, and the men also take so deep part in this that like it doesn't really surprise
There's
me that
an
much.
amazing level of pride
There
associated
is
with that.
with your own fashion and appearance, particularly in the tiny accessories that, you know, we would think like, well, like, okay, maybe he lived with his parents or whatever, but like a guy who was into this kind of subculture, that's not crazy to me that he would iron his, especially he might have even ironed it so it looked wrinkled.
Yeah.
You know, because that was the style. It's
yeah.
crazy. There's a crazy amount of thought and time that goes into a lot of these subcultures. And that's true with things even like skaters, where you would think, well, it's just like form over or function over form. But no, there's this like, it's crazy.
Yeah. No,
Well,
totally.
and it might
Sorry,
have, it
soapbox
might have also
over.
It might have also been just iron, so it wouldn't like, take up as much space in your pocket too. But you know.
Yeah.
Well, but
Yeah,
it's
okay.
weird that it had the cologne on it because
Yeah.
that's
It's a
apparently
Car Noir.
cologne isn't super popular
It's not.
through most of
No.
Japan, which is also an oddity about it. There's some other things. Okay, so there was the hip bag, aka the cool fanny pack, and it was, as I said before, it was nicer than your average kind of bag like that. But the really strange thing about the bag is what was found inside of it,
Yeah.
which was some sand. Specifically sand that they traced to be, I'm guessing they must have done it by the mineral counts and stuff. We talked about this in, what was
Lots of
Princess Doe.
episodes, yeah.
Princess Doe was the last one we talked about this. But they traced it and they said it came from California, and more specifically in the area around Edwards Air Force Base in California, which is just craziness.
It was just like it was like what, a handful of sand? Like
I don't
pile
think
of
it was even a
sand?
Probably just
handful.
traces
Just like
of
some
sand.
traces.
Yeah, just a couple dozen grains or something like that. I
stuff
mean,
that-
those guys are.
Stuff that gets into the seams and it'll just never
Yeah.
come out. You know what I mean?
I mean, think
Yeah.
about your shoes when you go to the beach and
No.
it just never
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
away.
Does
I just-
anybody ever import sand, like for aquariums or for God knows what?
So I'm going to have you hold on to that.
Okay.
Bear with me here because I've
Okay.
dropped two cliffhangers on people. One is the sand. Two is the Korean shoe sizing. And because I'm a jerk and I like a good cliffhanger, I'm going to make people wait, and we're going to talk about that later.
Ah.
Instead, we're going to go to a completely unrelated theory.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Let's go to the third theory. Theory number 3. Well, this is actually very similar to theory number 2. This is the biker gang theory.
Blech.
Basically, the only difference here is that instead of having fought with a skater, Mikio was actually seen outside fighting with a local biker, and the bike gangs in the area are called Bozozoku. I believe is how you pronounce
Bozozoku.
it. Listen, I'm really trying on this. Japanese is not my language, so
Bozozoku.
thank you for everybody who helped us with that.
How about
Bozozoku.
Bozozoku?
But they're the
Bozozoku.
biker gang.
Okay. well,
So-
They're the ones we were just talking about with the leather jackets
Yeah,
and the hair.
because they got these crazy leather jackets, the giant pompadours, and they're generally a nuisance. Actually, I was reading a really interesting article on Jalopnik about the fact that this culture is getting the biker culture is actually waning as the Japanese economy is waning, because the bikes are expensive. A bunch of them are now riding scooters, but even then, modifications are not cheap. The jackets aren't cheap. The embroidery on those jackets is super expensive. Like, you gotta
The
have
hair
money.
Products are insane.
You gotta have a lot of
good
money
point.
to
The
be
nail
a
polish.
ne'er-do-well, and nobody can afford to be this level of ne'er-do-well. But basically, the whole theory is that instead of a skater, he fought with a biker, and he offended that biker, and so this pompadour came in the house and killed the entire family.
I do
Or maybe
feel,
a couple of them did.
I do
It's
feel.
actually something we're going to talk about.
I do feel.
Sorry.
That's okay. That my understanding of these different gangs, because I have spent. Oh,
She used to be in a biker gang.
Yeah.
did. No, I, you know, going through costume design,
Yeah.
like my fascination with Japan in general, I've spent a fair amount of time researching the different street fashions of Japan and the kind of culture that comes around it. And I do feel like that culture around these kind of biker gangs is more aggressive. Not to say that I don't believe that they committed this crime, but I do kind of editorially feel like they are more likely than the skater gang.
Well, the way that I got the impression is that they like to make a nuisance of themselves and
Agreed.
generally rebel.
Yeah.
But that rebelling doesn't appear to escalate to the level of any kind of major crime.
They're more rebel without a cause.
Yes.
And-
or clue.
Right, but I don't believe that, like, certainly not premeditated if this happened on their part.
Well, that was the park a hangout for these guys?
I don't know.
think so.
I don't think so, Joe.
Because I've never
really
heard. I've read a lot about this story, and I never heard that. I mean, at least the skaters, they did hang out nearby.
They had a reason
I mean,
to.
The bikers, I'd never heard any evidence that they actually
No,
hung out there.
I really, like many stories, I feel like this was kind of just shoved in as a theory at some point by somebody, and it's been picked up in a number of places. That's really, I don't think there's much to it, which means we should probably move to the next theory,
Okay.
which is the
Screw you
Yakuza.
bikers, we're leaving. Okay. Yakuza, yeah.
So the Yakuza, so anybody who doesn't know, the Yakuza is the Japanese mob. So the theory goes that this family was possibly killed because it was a hit, maybe because Mikio either angered the wrong people, or maybe he owed the wrong people and he wasn't paying up.
Why's
And-
it gotta be him?
Well, because it's usually the man in the family that gets the family in trouble, because us men are dumb.
Yeah, but he wasn't the one who was the most brutalized.
True, but
Yeah.
but the point being, somebody in the family owed the Yakuza, if it's an O reason, unless it was a hit reason for some reason outside of that.
Sorry,
But
I'm just trying to be a true.
yeah, I know, but the point is that the Yakuza hires somebody, and then unbeknownst to them, the guy they hire decides to hang out and just make it a super creepy, weird thing because, well, that's just what he decided
Well,
to do.
I mean, I know you're going to talk about this a little bit, but if he was an outsider that was hired, maybe they didn't get him a hotel room. I mean, like, you're laughing, but
You
like
didn't
maybe
you didn't pay for my room aboard. Fine, I'm staying in their
he
house.
just didn't have a place to go or things to do before his flight left,
Yeah, or maybe he
or
was.
smuggling him out of the country happened.
Right.
You know, like
Maybe somebody
he had
was.
some time to kill.
Maybe he had a ride. The ride just said. The guy with the ride. His ride just said, "I'll swing by and pick you up at this hour, like 9 a.m." And so you got that entire window to get the job done. That's surveil the house, sneak into the house, kill them all, get the whole thing done, and I'll pick you up in this corner, someplace at 9 a.m. And so the guy's just like, oh, I got some time to kill, and it actually makes a lot more sense to stay here rather than go all night
Yeah.
by
Yeah,
myself.
totally.
Makes a ton more sense.
So let's talk about a bunch of stuff that's in here that people really like for the Yakuza hit theory.
All right.
We'll start with the Korean angle.
Okay.
Because that's what I brought up with the shoe being in the it listed in a Korean size. And then there's some details that I haven't shared so far about the poop emoji. So investigators figured out that, first off, the poop contained several things. Aside from DNA, it contained the remains of a meal And that meal was a green bean dish with sesame dressing, which is kind of a traditional meal, so that it's a vegetarian meal.
Japan.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that would have had any. It didn't have any meat in it. There was no meat found or cast off of meat in the poo. So they said, well, he must have been a vegetarian. They also found through testing the genetic makeup of our killer. The killer was not of pure Japanese descent or origin. Instead, the killer's father was probably Chinese or Korean, while the killer's mother was, according to their analysis, most likely Southern European, and they're saying that she was possibly either from either the Mediterranean or the Adriatic Sea area. So that's pretty detailed.
So, were they able to tell anything else about the killer besides that?
That's really all that I've ever found in the released information.
So that is all they know is that basically some ethnic heritage, and that's about it?
Yeah, it's the ethnic
And then
heritage, and some people make a lot out of that because in the Japanese culture, if you are not Japanese, just like any culture, if you're not of true pure heritage, then there can be some racism. That's the word I'm going to use.
It is.
Because that's what it is.
Sure.
And there are people who can never rise above a certain station because of their heritage. And so that's why people see this and look at this. And you'll see on the internet it breaks down how many Japanese versus Chinese versus Korean could have this. But the point is, it's a mixed background. I don't know if there's a whole lot of it, but this then goes ahead in the theory to say that, well, probably this guy wasn't from the area if he was of this mixed background, and that the idea would be that the Yakuza brought him in. They brought him in from somewhere else. You've got to, when you go through a border, you got to go through customs and all of that, and you got to have your paperwork in order. But it is entirely possible to smuggle people in. It happens in every country in the world.
True.
And if you're the mob, you're probably pretty good at smuggling people in.
True.
So,
but again, though, there's not any hard evidence that this person didn't live the next block over.
Nor is there any real motive.
Based on DNA, based on...
No, there's nothing to say that this person lives in country or has never been in country. But this theory says that this person was brought into the country for this deed.
Based on what the contents of the poo left in the toilet?
Of the DNA that was extracted from the poop emoji, yes.
Oh, the DNA, not the contents as in vegetable matter.
Correct.
And all that stuff.
Well,
DNA.
frankly, I'm not a vegetarian, but I'll go weeks, sometimes months at a time without eating meat. Just because I don't, it's not like a conscious thing one way or another. Sometimes it doesn't sound good, sometimes it does sound good. So it's not, I don't think because you've had one BM that doesn't have plant or
No.
meat
It means
matter.
you're total,
I don't think that's true.
No, I think
That's not how it works,
I
no.
kind of suspect that the killer didn't flush because the killer wanted it to be found.
I would more agree with
Because the killer probably was, like, say, an American. So, if they'd analyzed one of his regular, what's the word
Poop
I'm thinking
emojis?
of? Poop
that.
emojis. If they'd analyzed one of them, they would have found typical American. It would have been hamburgers and French fries. And so,
Of course.
And
That's
so the
all
guy
we eat.
wanted to, throw in a little, I'd say red herring, but more of a brown herring. And so he ate nothing but vegetables for like a week before.
Okay.
And that might be the reason that he actually hung out in the house.
waiting for a poop emoji.
Just waiting for that, and that might be the reason
you are way too focused on this emoji. We need to move on.
you guys have gone far afield. Let me
You're
do
right.
this for a second. So, we're thinking about reasons why he could possibly have stayed in the house so long. It might be if the guy really, really wanted to leave that little calling card for whatever reason, that was what kept him sticking around, because it's like, oh, not quite ready yet. I'll eat some more ice cream. I'll drink some more tea.
The Mad Pooper.
Yeah, and then finally it happens, and then bam, okay, I can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the Yakuza is a good... Because I think Yakuza is usually cleaner. But
Yeah.
I also don't see any motive
I also don't
for
see
this
them taking
family.
out. Do the Yakuza? Would they take out an entire family like that, or just take
I
out the
feel
one
like usually
person
they
who
would just like
wrong
cut
them?
off the arm of the person who wronged them.
I will
Yeah.
be honest that I haven't done enough reading on the Yakuza to even know what they would do. But basically, let me just cinch up the tail end of this particular theory. It's saying that this guy was so flagrant in leaving fingerprints and DNA around because he knew that he was not going to be in the Japanese system, and so
Yeah.
there was no way that they were going to pin him down, and then he would just go to his new employer and they would ship him home and he was scot-free. I mean, that's the way the theory goes. I will agree. There's again, just like the other ones, there's giant holes in that idea, and I really don't, as Devin said, I don't really see why the Yakuza would go to that length, because from what we can tell, this family had nothing.
Nothing.
That would have drawn that kind of ire
No,
to get them
probably
all
not.
wiped out.
Agreed.
I will tell you, and these things, these next bits that I'm going to give you, I really think that they're just kind of wild cards here, and I don't think they're actually connected. But on the early morning hours of the 31st of December, so this is the morning, the killing happens late in the night, so this is the early mornings. A cab driver said he picked up 3 men sometime in the early morning around the area of the home. And one of those men had a wound on his hand, and he took him to a nearby train station. They didn't talk during the whole time, which he said was kind of weird because that early in the morning he expected them to be drunken revelers, and instead they were very, very quiet. There's also reporting that a man was treated for a deep knife wound in his hand at 5:30 in the afternoon on the 31st near Tobanico Station, which is, again, this is why I think this is just a wild bit. That's 75 miles away, which is 122 kilometers from the home. So I think that that's just some random unconnected bit, but people grab onto it.
Well, now, speaking of the knife wound, let's talk about that for a sec. So the killer's blood was left behind on some bandages and some sanitary napkins. Did any?
And some other surfaces around the house, yeah.
Okay, and also on his clothes and stuff. Okay.
I don't know about the clothes, but I do know it was on surfaces in the house.
Uh-huh.
Like in the kitchen, on the mouse of the computer. There was places that it was found.
Okay. All right. Okay. Never mind then.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to our next theory. I know there's at least one of you has one more than I do, but we're
Yep.
going to go
Devin's
to
got
our
one.
next theory, which is a U.S. airman. This theory hinges really on that bag and the sand that was found in it. Because, like we
think it's
said,
just so
it was
silly.
all traced back to, I'm guessing by mineral content, to the area around Edwards Air Force Base. And this leads a lot of people to say that, it was a U.S. airman who was out for a night of light murder, and then when he did the deed, he returned to his post, and then eventually he went home. And I gotta tell you that I think that's the dumbest thing in the world, because if the Japanese actually thought that seriously a U.S. citizen had done this murder, they'd have gone to the U.S. and military and said, hey, I
Military
think your guy...
personnel do get fingerprinted.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
they
I
do.
think your guy killed somebody. Can you check his fingerprint? And they'd had him in the system, and he'd have been busted in a
You
heartbeat.
never know. They might have actually done that. They might have actually run his fingerprints.
Yeah.
through the
I mean,
US
this whole
database.
thing, it's all based on the sand. Okay, this is dumb. You asked this before, though, Joe. It's like there's some very innocent reasons how sand could have got there. Could have been a secondhand bag that was imported. Could have been something like you were asking about aquariums. It
or
could
whatever.
be,
I mean,
you ever see those...
Yes.
little balls with sands and stones in them that are decorative, that maybe that came from the U.S. and it broke. I mean, there's a bajillion ways that sand from that region could have ended up in a piece of clothing.
As Devin would say, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Bingo.
Okay.
Okay, actually, I have
So the
one that
airman-
is so much dumber for you.
Yeah, I know you do.
I do, because I really...
And then I have one that's pretty good
Okay.
by my comparison.
All right.
Right.
Well, my last theory is that this was all done by a corporate competitor. It was corporate espionage to an amazing level. But again, this doesn't make any sense because nothing in this gives the slightest hint that Mikio was involved with anything that was of high enough importance that a rival branding agency would send a hitman to get what he had. Like,
It might
I've
have been
seen this. I've
the
seen
people
this.
that they stole Wi-Fi from. Maybe,
Everybody steals Wi-Fi, Joe.
Yeah, a different kind of stealing Wi-Fi. Yeah,
But really, it's there's nothing that even gives me any inclination to say that there's anything solid in that. But you will see that kicked around the internet. And Devin is over here like waving her hand, so I gotta know
Devin wants.
what
Devin
is
has
the
a
theory that I have missed.
Hey, did they fingerprint the family?
I believe they did.
Oh.
I
never
tell you,
mind.
wondering if maybe one of the people next door was the killer.
Yeah.
Like they. Really.
I
Good
believe
question.
they did. I can't say, though, with any certainty that they did. But knowing how the Japanese police and their CSI, how procedurally bound they are, I would imagine that is one of the things that you would do almost right away.
I
you
would
have to.
also imagine that. But here's, like, let me just run with the theory for, like, 2 seconds. I'm sorry. I guess my theory kind of goes twofold, right? Either... like, they were sharing this wall with this family, and there's their family. How do you not hear this bleep crap
Stuff. Things.
going on? Right? I mean, like, there's no way that there's not screaming and yelling and, like, help, and he's killing him, blah, blah, right? Unless somebody's involved. Or, I guess, my, like, main theory is that one of the people in this family did it and then maybe killed themselves or maybe got killed by a family member who came over to try to intervene or whatever.
It was a 6-year-old.
Okay, wait. I'm trying to. You're gonna have to flesh that out
Okay,
for me a little
so
more.
let's say like the father is downstairs doing work and he just like loses it. He goes upstairs, he smothers his child.
Oh, okay. Continue on.
Goes upstairs, smothers his son. The mom comes down with the daughter and is like, "What are you doing? Oh my God!" He kills them, either commits suicide or the family next door hears what's going on.
Them on the top of the stairs, and then turns to triumphantly walk downstairs and get a beer out of the fridge, and then trips
accidentally stabs
and
himself.
stabs himself to death, rolling down the stairs.
Right,
I kind of like
but
that
some
one.
sort of exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But some sort of family dispute. Again, the next door family is kind of involved in it. They are like, okay, well, how do we make this look like it was a mistake? They like do a couple things on the computer. They like take a poop and then like leave and then come back and then they call the cops. And it's not a perfect theory.
I don't think so.
But none of these theories are perfect theories.
None of them are really.
So
None
I
of them
guess
are.
I that's kind of my thought is like, well, what if it were
an inside job?
kind of, yeah. Because somehow it makes more sense to me than somebody randomly breaking in and for some reason smothering a 6-year-old and then stabbing a bunch of people and then hanging out for a while. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I have to contribute to this story.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not good.
No,
But I would say it's at least as good as the Yakuza.
Oh yeah, well, and really, if this is not an inside job like you're saying, Devin, there is a pretty serious amount of planning involved to bring clothes to lead a false... I mean, the clothes seem like they were brought to lead the police in the wrong direction, to misdirect them.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's not just your random freak who decides to kill somebody, climbing in the house and doing the deed, and then deciding to do something after the fact. Like there's some research.
Somebody had a real motivation to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't random. So the random